Disclaimer: The Boys does not suck because it's political. Let's get that out there first. The Boys season 4 is getting too political, or woke. We did not just say The Boys is getting too political. It's been that way since the start. The Boys season 4 is woke.
It took some people 4 seasons to realize The Boys is
I
making
used
fun
to
of
think
themselves.
Oh my gosh! The online public discourse around this show is just unbearable and full of gaslighting to make you believe one thing. It's the same repetitive echo chamber from both sides. One says that if you don't like the new season, then apparently you're dumb and just now realized the show is making fun of you the whole time. And the other side just calls the show woke without adding anything of substance to the conversation. Well, not today. You see, what used to be a complex show about taking down Homelander with fun satirical jabs and all things superhero related, corporate influence, the cultural zeitgeist, and politics has now just become a show about, well, stereotypical politics, pointless gore, and hardcore pornography. It's like the writers transformed into edgy teenagers who just learned the basics of politics and think that extreme blood and nudity is interesting to watch. It's not. Sure, it's played off as a joke or for laughs most of the time, but it's really concerning that we're being desensitized to this type of content and it's being normalized by the creators. I don't like it, and apparently the majority of the audience doesn't either.
Here's what the showrunner Eric Kripke says when you ask about this change. I clearly have a perspective, and I'm not shy about putting that perspective in the show. Anyone who wants to call the show woke or whatever, that's okay. Go watch something else. Some people who watch it think Homelander is the hero. What do you say to that? The show's many things. Subtle isn't one of them.
Wow. Okay, no normal person thinks Homelander is the hero. I know the writer thinks part of his audience is dumb for believing certain ideas, but Homelander being a hero is not one of those ideas. No normal person saw this guy's actions and genuinely thought he was the good guy.
You called me dad.
I think he's kind of misunderstood. So what does this have to do with the critique the show has been given? And guess what? Almost everyone knew what the show's politics were from the beginning. Yes, it wasn't subtle and the perspective was clear. The show has always been a bit political. People aren't that dumb and realized what the show was trying to say. But contrary to what the showrunner believes, it was kind of nuanced. People from all sides of the political spectrum willingly watched the show knowing that, because the story was well thought out and interesting. AKA, it was pretty solid writing.
To quote The Critical Drinker, people can be surprisingly receptive to your political ideas when they're smartly wrapped up and presented in entertaining products.
And that's what happened for the first 3 seasons of The Boys. The characters were complex and 3-dimensional. The Boys had a purpose and a clear goal to work towards. The villains had believable motivations. It saved gore and nudity for important plot points and used sparingly. The references to the real world were well thought out, timely, and frequently considered both sides to an argument if need be. With season 1 turning the rapidly declining superhero genre on its head and subverted audiences' expectations by asking one simple question: what if superheroes were actually more bad than super? But now that they've crossed a nakedly gory line with episodes like Herogasm, what do they have to do for 2 more seasons? They can't just backtrack, they have to go bigger and better, trying to outdo themselves. More blood, more nudity, more shock value, and more political jokes. To be honest, I was worried for season 4 when the cast and crew would promote it by mainly talking about how disgusting and crazy some of the scenes they filmed were, rather than the story itself.
There's a scene that we shot this season where I found my line, where I was like, ooh, this is too much for me.
Actually, life, not on the show, in my life, where I broke character and screamed.
Yep. I was like, Laz is going for it in this take.
And I think the tweet was, I have seen the grossest or the nastiest thing I've ever seen in my life on this show now.
And he's not wrong.
And now that season 4 has completed, I can officially say that only the last 20 minutes of the finale was necessary to watch. Throughout the season, I had no idea how the protagonists were going to achieve their goal, or even what the goal was. It meandered from scene to scene, leaving you wanting more, but not getting anything. For the 4th season in a row, we had to watch the boys come up with a plan to take down Homelander, get super close, but ultimately fail and end up at square one. Huey still hasn't grown a spine. Butcher is still backstabbing his friends with no repercussions, and Homelander is still randomly killing people and a big crybaby. The boys get really close to Homelander. You think someone might die, but they don't. Remember when Homelander's presence used to be scary? So much so that whenever our heroes were even near him, we'd be terrified of what he was going to do? But after 4 monotonous seasons of the same thing, we know Homelander isn't going to kill Huey nor Butcher because, well, he hasn't a million other times, so I guess they're saving it for the finale. Compared to shows like Game of Thrones, where no one is safe because it makes sense for the plot and character choices, The Boys pales in comparison. And the other characters are pretty much given nothing to do, like Starlight, who is the most wasted character in the show and has done nothing. Not even the characters can take her seriously.
Stop it! You know how that ends.
Put him away. Not gonna hurt you. Besides, you'd lose.
Enough.
The eyes. It's always the eyes. Here. Women.
I'm kidding.
The writers trapped themselves with a huge ensemble cast and are now forced to give each of them something to do. Frenchie's story in this season is so boring, and the writers really missed the mark in the beginning by introducing some random guy for him to pine over, and then backtrack by lazily having him get with Kimiko, which was, coincidentally, the most interesting thing she did this season. Huey's story with his mom and dad also feels forced because why now? Huey's mom suddenly comes out of nowhere to mend her relationship with her son, whom she abandoned when he was like 5 or whatever. And now these two are best friends because his dad dies? Why? Oh, and of course, Huey is again the butt of the season, who gets assaulted twice in the most gruesome, twisted, and disgusting scene ever to be aired on television, and is played off as a joke, and also his fault? Apparently to the showrunner, it was hilarious.
Hey, Maeve. Good to see you again. Glad you're okay.
It's like you wear a neon sign that says, "Raw dog me, I'm a bottom."
The show also introduces us to the smartest person in the world to move the plot forward, which sounds interesting, right? But unfortunately, like many other genius characters in fiction, she's only as smart as the writers, which in this case is not very smart. Because the writers have her come up with painfully see-through plans or dumb down established characters to elevate her. But I did like her dynamic with some characters like Homelander and the Deep, despite their unnecessarily grotesque scenes together. Like, I'm pretty sure the smartest person in the world can find other ways to chill out than give themselves a lobotomy. And, of course, by the end of the show, when the villain's plan seems to have failed, it actually went all according to plan because she said so.
Plan's dead.
This is the plan.
So yeah, I didn't buy the fact that she's the smartest person in the world when she did nothing to prove it. Only anecdotes or straight up telling me she's the smartest person in the world.
You know, I would have thought the smartest woman on earth would have a nicer place.
Smartest person. Plus, I'm a black woman who is 1,000 times smarter than you.
You're the smartest woman on earth.
Smartest person.
There's a lot of wasted potential too, just for the show to make another redundant political scene. Homelander's court case occurs off screen, which could have been interesting to watch and given more depth to him. But instead, we got protest scenes that had little to no impact, in which those arrested were released off screen. Butcher is kicked out of the boys and then joins again, so more filler, just so the show can laugh at people who believe in conspiracy theories at TruthCon, which doesn't further any goal, and the gang ends up back where they were at the beginning of the episode, albeit traumatized from the nudity. And in the context of the show, TruthCon makes no sense. Why are these people crazy for believing absurd things about superheroes and the world when the writers themselves already established that the superheroes are actually depraved degenerates behind the scenes and there's major corruption?
Superheroes are bad. They're degenerates behind the scenes, and that's what they don't want you to know. Keep your eyes open.
People will believe anything these days. I can't believe they think they're right. Yeah, not like us though. We stay informed from the left. Yeah. So ready for this year's orgy? But the show excels when it goes back to Butcher and Homelander's story. Their screen presence carries the show, and it's really why most people kept watching. I like the contrast of these two people trying to raise their son. Homelander's mini backstory was interesting and did a great job at raising the stakes if they had done something with it. But unfortunately, Homelander goes back to caring about what people think about him and goes back to drinking milk. Does he only have one character trait? And Butcher's Fight Club-esque plot twist could have been cool if it wasn't so painfully obvious what they were doing. But in reality, A-Train's story is a great win for the season. He's grown a lot as a character, and you can really empathize with him now. I like his dynamic with the other characters too, and I was actually rooting for him. Even MM too, who's in the background for most of the scenes before, but is given a lot more love this time around. And finally, the season ends with the boys getting captured by Homelander's minions, or whatever. I didn't watch the Gen V spinoff. But why? Why not just kill them? What strategic advantage does Homelander gain for keeping them alive? Especially considering he sent the Deep and Black Noir to kill them in the previous episode. And of course, Homelander gets what he wants in the end, despite doing nothing for it. In my opinion, I think these issues have to do with the emphasis of politics over story. The writers have a clear message they want to get across, and transform some of the characters into mouthpieces for these ideas. The politics dictated where the story went, and often led to predictable satire or scenes. The show went from what if superheroes were bad to what if superheroes were Republicans,
We will make America super again.
which used to be set in a world where corporations were greedy, and now set in a world where corporations are Republicans and greedy. This is not the amazing political satire like people are saying. It's just an underdeveloped teenager's perspective of politics who was given $100 million to make a show out of it by Amazon. Maybe don't get political ideas from Amazon, but whatever. The writers just lost their touch. And if you don't like it, they tell you to go watch something else. I mean, come on. That's such a disrespectful and egotistical thing to say. Be open to criticism and different ideas. Respect the audience and trust them to understand and engage with political themes without being overly explicit. Don't tell a didactic story that moves away from the idea you originally crafted and get upset when people call you out on it. Hey, happy birthday! I made you a strawberry cake with some light vanilla in it. Hope you like it. Thank you. I don't really like vanilla, but this tastes really good.
Many months later.
Another birthday already, man. I made you another cake since you liked the last one so much. This time, a little less strawberry and a lot more vanilla. I don't know. It's not as good as the last one. I think there's too much vanilla in here. Well, there was vanilla in the last cake too, but I guess you're too dumb to realize that. Go buy a cake from somebody else. Politics in Hollywood is a dangerous thing. So much so that writers can get too personally involved and have their beliefs take over the narrative. Now, I get that this season was kind of building up to a presidential election, and that's inherently political. But, as screenwriter guru Robert McKee emphasized, it's the writer's duty to create a compelling story rather than prioritizing their personal beliefs. Storytelling should serve the audience and the narrative, rather than simply serving as a vehicle for the writer's personal conviction. Yeah, one's worldview can influence their work, but it must transcend beyond mere belief and resonate both emotionally and intellectually with the audience to allow them to draw their own conclusions and meaning. And in doing so, writers can create more impactful narratives. Look, the show really does put the overarching story in the background. That's not good writing. That's why we get scenes where a lobotomy happens, or seeing some dude toss his own salad, or seeing characters get assaulted for laughs, or characters transforming into political mouthpieces. Yes, things like this can happen, but it happens so much that it overtakes the narrative and leaves you wondering what the point was. In the case of The Boys Season 4, it's clear that the focus is no longer on the story. There's no longer something for everyone. You can't just brush it off and continue watching for the overarching goal anymore. There's so much wasted potential. It's predictable, it's the same, and the story is pushed to the back so you can be spoon-fed the writer's message. And if you're okay with that, then good for you, and I'm glad you like it. And if you're not okay with that, well, I don't blame you. Just know that this season is not bad because there's politics, blood, and nudity. It's bad because it's mainly politics, blood, and nudity, with little to no compelling story. I just think it's ironic how the show used to make fun of media that divides and manipulates the masses, and corporations with way too much influence on products, but ultimately transformed into just that.